Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this session on medicine supply for Northern Ireland. I'll just start with a little bit of housekeeping before we go into the session. So the webinar itself will last for approximately 1 hour. We'll then have a quick 10-minute break where we will look at questions that you have submitted either before the webinar or during. I would encourage you to please continue to submit questions. We'll curate them into themes based on the number of questions and votes, and then we'll regroup for a panel discussion lasting about 30-40 minutes to answer as many of those questions as possible. I appreciate that some questions that have been submitted may not get addressed just because of the time we have available. We will be producing a frequently asked questions document as well that will look at the thematic areas that have come through the questions. That will be shared with trade associations to make sure that they're able to help their members get as much information as possible on how the guidance also works. If you still feel like you have questions that are specific to your organisation that are unanswered, you can email info@mhra.gov.uk. That goes through to our customer services centre, so it makes sure that the question is logged and it will be routed through to the right person in the organisation with the right technical knowledge to respond. One last thing is recordings. There'll be a link sent to the recording along with a transcript to anyone that's in attendance, so you'll have that following the webinar. The Q&A session will not be part of that recording. So in terms of running for the webinar session, we're going to start with a very brief overview of the European Union proposal, the proposal we had from the Commission in December. That will last about 10 minutes. I'll then pass to my colleague Liz Baker, who will talk through the overview of how the proposals are impacting on additional guidance for licensing. We'll then move through to a section run by my colleague Lewis Corbett on how the proposal is impacting on the guidance for supplying medicines into Northern Ireland, so a specific focus on supply chain implications. And then lastly, we'll have a session from Hannah Gain, who's Head of Medicines Policy, on the new Northern Ireland MHRA authorised route. This, to be very clear, is something that is a national policy objective. It is not part of the proposal from the European Commission, but sits very much alongside it as an additional regulatory pathway to supply medicinal products into Northern Ireland only in the interest of public health need. So we'll have a session that expands on that in more detail. At that point, we'll take a 10-minute break before going into the panel discussion. So an overview of the European Commission proposal. As probably many people on the call will know, on the 17th of December, the European Commission published a proposal for a new agreement on medicines into the UK, focused on ensuring that Northern Ireland is able to access medicines at the same time as the rest of the UK. The proposal is principally made up of two parts. One is an extension to the grace period to provide time for long-term legislative solutions to come into place. And then secondly, new legislative proposals which will seek to resolve Northern Ireland supply issues permanently, and these will come into effect across 2022. Frankly, this signals a very constructive approach from the European Commission following a substantial period of negotiations over the last 2 years. We're still analysing the fine details of the proposal, but in the MHRA, we're very cautiously optimistic that the proposal can resolve the immediate supply issues into Northern Ireland, and additional implementation will be in the gift of the UK to resolve. As such, that is what we're working to now with some of the guidance that we'll discuss today. And a crucial point is, I think, interesting. It shows that the EU is willing to change their legislation to improve the functioning of the protocol, the Northern Ireland Protocol for medicines. So I'll just give a very quick overview on some of the biggest impacts that we think the legislation has in key areas, and then my colleagues will go through it in more detail. Firstly, on products that are approved through the mutual recognition or decentralised procedure. The proposal allows that companies can choose whether to use an EU process or a UK national process. New UK-wide national applications can now be made in parallel to a national MRDC application. and this will be the case while the legislation is being made. For caps, an important point is cap products for Northern Ireland will remain within the scope of the centrally authorised procedure so long as the Northern Ireland Protocol will remain in effect. And what that means is where there's a community MA granted, whether it's in the mandatory or optional scope of the centralised procedure, they will automatically take effect in Northern Ireland. They will not take effect in Great Britain. So one of the concerns we have in the MHRA is how do we manage any differences in timing of market authorisation between an MHRA decision and a decision that comes out of the European Commission after an EMA review. One of the options in the proposal is to help us manage those differences. We'll be able to create a bridging mechanism, and that will allow the MHRA to temporarily authorise products across the whole of the UK for a period of 6 months. So we're currently preparing within the MHRA to engage with trade associations on options for implementing this provision. On batch testing, EU-UK batch testing, under the proposed agreement, batch testing can be carried out in Great Britain for Northern Ireland, providing it's certified and released in the EU, Northern Ireland or Great Britain, which is obviously very good news. Throughout the negotiations, we've attempted, alongside Department of Health colleagues, to secure a mutual recognition agreement on batch testing. Unfortunately, the European Commission has been firmly opposed to this situation throughout the negotiations, so we haven't resolved that. And as a consequence, the UK government is now undertaking a detailed review of UK batch testing policies, and that's principally to ensure that there is a streamlined but effective process in place that isn't additionally burdensome. And then lastly, on FMD, you'll note that the proposal includes a 3-year derogation starting in January 21 on the EU falsified medicines regime. It's an extension of the existing grace period, and it means that medicines will not be decommissioned when they leave the EU for supply into the UK. Further discussions on the future position, so after December 2024, are ongoing, and we're also going to be doing a consultation with industry on the future of a UK FMD system, which is being jointly led by the MHRA and Department of Health. The grace period extension, so just to touch on what that means, in December it was announced that there'd be a unilateral extension of the grace period. The EU has agreed with the UK's position to extend that grace period for medicines until the 31st of January 2022, and that's to provide time to make permanent legislative changes to human medicines legislation. What that means effectively is that current processes for moving goods between Great Britain and Northern Ireland will continue to be administered as they have been up to this point. And then the grace period will be superseded by new EU legislation once this has been adopted. So it's likely to come into effect over the course of 2022. One thing I'd like to stress is we will of course ensure that notice is given to all impacted actors and parties in the event that any arrangements are to change, to enable everyone to make appropriate preparations. At this point, I'll hand over to my colleague Liz Baker to talk through the licensing implications. Liz, over to you.
Thank you, Jack. Yes, thanks, Jack. Yes, so I'm Liz Baker. I'm one of the group managers in our medicines licensing division. So first of all, I'm going to talk about national procedures and how they sit alongside the arrangements for applications made through the MRDC procedures of the European Union. And as a result of the proposals, which will amend the 2001/83 directive on medicines, there are now more choices for companies for the regulatory strategy that they want to use for national applications. The reason being that as a result of the legislative changes that will be made, the use of MRDC procedures is not mandatory when applying to the UK, in fact Northern Ireland, and one or more of the member states. As a result of that, companies will be able to make new UK-wide national applications in parallel with either a national or an MRDC application to one of the member states. If there are pending applications for Northern Ireland in the MRDC procedures, they can be withdrawn, and they can be continued as UK-wide national applications. For authorisations already granted, they may also be withdrawn from the MRDC procedures and maintained as UK-wide national authorisations. And any already granted GB-only authorisations can be converted to UK-wide authorisations and again maintained as national authorisations. So in the next couple of slides, I'll go through the actions that you would need to take if you want to do any of these amendments. And the actions will depend on whether the existing marketing authorisation is already covering the UK-wide territory, or the territory is restricted to either Great Britain or Northern Ireland. And just a point to note, which is that if you have an authorisation, even if it's a national authorisation just in the UK, if it covers Northern Ireland, it must comply with the requirements of the Falsified Medicines Directive, because that takes effect in Northern Ireland. So first of all then, let's look at the actions that you'll need to take if you want to remove a pending application or an already granted authorisation from MRDC. So if you have a pending UK-wide application, you'll need to advise the reference member state that the UK should be withdrawn from the MRDC procedure. You should also advise us of the intended change that you want to make, and you can do that by simply emailing us to the MRDC procedures mailbox. You don't need to make any other submission of data. We will make that change in our database and we will issue confirmation that the change has been made. Similarly, if you have an already granted UK-wide authorisation, the same thing, advise the reference member state that the UK should be withdrawn from the MRDC procedure. Tell us of the intended change, again using that same email box. Again, no other submission of data is needed. We will make the change and we will issue confirmation of that change. So that is really quite straightforward. Coming now to the case of licenses that are restricted in their territory to Great Britain only. And if you want to convert those into UK-wide applications, the process is a little bit different. So for those granted authorisations, you will need to have a new MA number, and you'll be able to allocate that through the submissions portal in the usual way. You'll need to update and submit updated versions of the SMPC, the pill and the labelling, using that new MA number together with a cover letter requesting that territory change. We will issue a UK-wide MA and cancel the existing GB authorisation. If there are any pending regulatory actions, such as variations, those will automatically be transferred to the new authorisation. Then, if you also have an equivalent authorisation in Northern Ireland, a PLNI authorisation, and if that is in an MRDC procedure, you need to advise the reference member state that you want that withdrawn, and then you will need to withdraw the actual authorisation as well. We will publish some detailed guidance on exactly what you need to do, and that will appear on our website fairly shortly after these webinars have been completed. Similarly, for the conversion of pending applications now that are restricted to Great Britain, the procedure will be similar as I have just described for the granted authorisations. During the procedure, because it's still pending, advise us by email that you will want to make a territory change from Great Britain to the UK. Again, you'll need to allocate a new MA number through the portal. Use that number to submit the final versions of the SMPC pill and labelling. At the end of the national procedure, we will issue a UK-wide authorisation and cancel the previous GB application. If you do have an equivalent application pending in Northern Ireland, either nationally or through MRDC. Advise the reference member state, if it's in MRDC, that you want to withdraw from that procedure. Withdraw the application itself. And again, we will explain this in more detailed guidance on the website. So now to look at the location of the marketing authorisation holder for various different circumstances. And this has also been affected by the EU proposal. So the MA holder for a UK marketing authorisation may be located in either Great Britain or in the European Union. That is the case for any UK-wide national marketing authorisation, for a PLGB, National Marketing Authorisation, and it's also the case for an authorisation for Northern Ireland, even if that has been made through the MRDC procedure. Where possible, we encourage companies to submit UK-wide MAs, but this won't be possible in a couple of circumstances. The first one being where products fall within the mandatory scope of the European Medicines Agency centralised procedure. And the second circumstance is where a community marketing authorisation through that centralised procedure has also already been issued for the product. So in those cases, the authorisation issued by the European Commission takes effect in Northern Ireland, and the regulation on community procedures prohibits a centrally authorised product, which is the subject of a European Commission authorisation. It prohibits a national authorisation being granted alongside that community authorisation. And so that is why it won't be possible in these cases to make a UK-wide application. And just also to remind you that if you are making an application through the centralised procedure, the MA holder must be located in the European Union. So in that particular case, the MA holder will not be accepted if you submit an application with a GB address. Now, coming on to the centrally authorised products themselves. So centrally authorised products, as I've just said, are the subject of a community marketing authorisation issued by the European Commission, and the mandatory scope of that procedure applies in Northern Ireland. When community marketing authorisations are granted in the mandatory or the optional scope of the centralised procedure, they take effect in Northern Ireland, but they do not take effect in Great Britain. So, as Jack said in his introduction, there are cases where if a company has applied separately to us for a Great Britain authorisation, we're able to authorise that in advance of the European Commission. And the proposed amendment to the community procedures that are set out in Regulation 726/2004 will permit us to authorise products for a bridging period of 6 months. We haven't yet established a process for that, and we're currently preparing to engage with trade associations on the options for implementing this provision. So there won't be any guidance issued on it in the very near future. Looking at our experience to date, a bridging period of 6 months would cover quite a number of the instances where we have granted in advance of the European Commission, but not all. So, I mean, it is possible that there will be cases where that bridging period is not sufficient to cover the time difference, and we'll need to look at those on a case-by-case basis to see what the best solution is for supply to Northern Ireland. And then my last slide is on multi-country packs. Obviously, there is an advantage to companies to have a multi-country pack, and we think that these proposals to amend legislation will increase the number of circumstances where a multi-country pack will be wanted and will be viable. So just to remind you about the circumstances where these would be acceptable. So multi-country or common packs, as they're often called, are acceptable in the UK, providing that all of the UK regulatory requirements are met and that the clinical particulars in the relevant jurisdictions are the same. So that means that the information on the pack and in the pack is identical. So that would enable a common pack between the EU and Great Britain. Details of a PLGB authorisation number can be included in the blue box, and the EU has actually issued some guidance on this. I've put the link there in the slide. The slides will be shared after the webinar, so you'll be able to have a look at that. It will also enable a single pack to be produced for the UK and the Republic of Ireland, including the serialisation that's required for the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. All of the authorisations valid in Northern Ireland must, as I've already said, comply with the packaging requirements of the FMD. But where you are proposing to produce a multi-country pack, it's always wise to check with the regulators in the other relevant jurisdictions that that multi-country pack will be acceptable to them, as well as having been accepted by the MHRA. Thank you, Jack, and I'm now going to hand over to Lewis.
Thanks very much, Liz. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. My name's Lewis Corbett and I'm an operations manager and GMP inspector here at the MHRA. I'm going to talk to you about the impact of the EU proposal on the supply of medicines to Northern Ireland and some of the implications on the supply chain. So firstly, as Great Britain is now considered a third country by the EU, there was the potential that an MIA would be required to import product into Northern Ireland from Great Britain. However, under the EU proposal, product can continue to be brought into Northern Ireland under a wholesale dealer authorisation, provided certain conditions are met. The conditions to be met are as generally expected for any licensed product released to the UK supply chain. So under the terms of the proposal, medicinal products can continue to be brought into Northern Ireland from Great Britain by holders of appropriately authorised wholesale dealer authorisations located in Northern Ireland. No MIA is required, provided that the products are obviously licensed in Northern Ireland and the batches have been certified and released by a qualified person in the EU or the UK. And as part of that QP certification, obviously the products would have undergone batch testing either in the EU or the UK, and I will talk a bit more about batch testing in a later slide. Batches QP certified in the EU would be imported into GB by the holder of a wholesale dealer authorisation under the supervision of an RPI. Packs to be supplied into Northern Ireland must bear the FMD safety features of the unique identifier and the anti-tamper device, as the FMD is obviously still applies in Northern Ireland. And again, I will talk more about FMD later. And the other provision of the EU proposal is that those packs imported from GB to Northern Ireland are only made available in Northern Ireland and not made available in other EU member states. Similarly, products can be supplied into Northern Ireland by wholesalers located in GB. This has not changed. It's outside the scope of the EU proposal really, but I've just included for completeness. Existing controls and requirements still apply. So medicinal products can continue to be supplied to wholesalers in Northern Ireland, pharmacists, hospitals, GPs, etc. by holders of appropriately authorised WD8 located in Great Britain. Again, products are licensed, need to be licensed in Northern Ireland. The batches will have been certified and released by QP. The products have undergone batch testing. The packs bear the FMD safety features again, as FMD still applies in Northern Ireland. And again, the products are only made available in Northern Ireland and not onward supplied to other EU member states. With regard to supply of investigational medicinal products, the proposal sets out that IMP can continue to flow from GB Northern Ireland without any additional importation controls, again, provided certain conditions are met. So IMP can continue to be supplied to Northern Ireland from Great Britain without any additional importation controls, i.e. sites in Northern Ireland did not require an MIA IMP, provided that the IMP has been QP certified in the EU or the UK, and the IMP are only made available to clinical trial participants in Northern Ireland and not again made available in other EU member states. As well as the EU proposal, I just wanted to mention that we've also introduced the oversight process to allow QP certification in the EU to facilitate supply into GB and onward to Northern Ireland as required, and licenses have been varied. License variations have been approved to enable this recently. So QP certification performed in the EU EEA is acceptable for supply of IMP to GB and to Northern Ireland via GB, provided that oversight process is in place and that the GB site holds an MIA IMP appropriately authorised for importation of QP certified IMPs from a country on the approved country for import list. Also to note that we are allowing EU-based QP to be named on the UK MIA IMP for confirmation of that oversight process only, not for QP certification of finished IMP in the UK. A lot more information on the IMP oversight process is available on our website, and I'd encourage you to look at the website and seek out further information on that. Also, just wanted to confirm that QP certification performed in the EU EEA is acceptable for supply of IMPs direct to Northern Ireland for use at Northern Ireland trial sites. For that point-to-point supply, as it were, no oversight process is required as the products are not being brought into Great Britain. Moving on to location of qualified persons, the EU proposal sets out that where a Northern Ireland product licence application is made through mutual recognition or decentralised process, the QP for pharmacovigilance can be located in Great Britain unless the marketing authorisation holder already has a QP PV established in the Union. There's no changes to locations of QP PV for UK nationally licensed products. They can still be located in the EU or the UK, and if the QPVB is in the EU, then they establish that UK national contact person for PV, have a UK address, a physical location where adverse drug reaction reports and UK pharmacovigilance master file can be electronically accessed, but that hasn't changed as a result of the EU proposal. With regards to QP manufacturing for batch certification and release, that can also be located in GB for supply to Northern Ireland. The EU proposal states that this does not apply where the manufacturing authorisation holder already has at its disposal a QP which is established in the Union when the directive comes into force. Now, our interpretation of this is that does not prevent GB sites being nominated as site of batch release for supply into Northern Ireland. So a UK site of batch release can be nominated on an application for UK national or Northern Ireland specific product licence for supply of product into Northern Ireland. EU-based QPs are not named on UK manufacturing authorisations. Therefore, sites holding a UK MIA nominated as the site of batch release do not have at their disposal a QP located in the EU. Just to emphasise, supply of product from GB into the rest of the EU does require that EU-based QP. So we are aware that there are other possible interpretations of this based around the term marketing authorisation holder already having an EU batch release site nominated for Northern Ireland, and we've raised this as a point that we want to clarify with the Commission. Regarding batch testing, there is no requirement to repeat batch testing of released product moving from GB to Northern Ireland if we consider that there is what the EU directive refers to as a justifiable case. Now, we would consider there to be a justifiable case, which means that batch testing can be carried out in Great Britain, provided that batches are certified and released by a QP located in the EU, Northern Ireland or Great Britain, applying equivalent quality standards, and that the site of batch testing is regularly supervised, which I think is the term used in the proposal, which means, you know, appropriately licensed and subject to inspection, which I think is referred to as on-the-spot checks in the proposal. Our assumption is that companies will seek to use existing manufacturing and supply chain logistics and make use of this flexibility on location of QC testing in GB wherever possible. But if you don't intend to make use of that flexibility, then the MA holder should notify us via email to the info@mhra.gov mailbox. Additionally, the EU proposal confirms that testing of batches imported into Great Britain from the EU does not need to be repeated for onward supply to Northern Ireland when the testing has been carried out in a member state. However, the proposal does not mention testing carried out in third countries that have an MRA with the EU. And similarly, our current assumption is that testing of product already released to market by a UK QP based on the QC testing performed in a third country subject to an MRA with the UK does not need to be repeated for supply to Northern Ireland. But these are points that, again, we have raised for clarification, particularly around the term use of member state when talking about batch testing carried out in the EU. And as Jack has mentioned already, there's currently a review underway of the UK batch testing process, and further information on that will follow. And finally, just a word on FMD safety features. So the delegated regulation still applies in Northern Ireland, and safety features, the unique identifier, and the anti-tamper device must be applied to applicable products that are licensed in Northern Ireland. And this includes products that are licensed for the UK as a whole, as that marketing authorisation is also valid in Northern Ireland. There is no requirement to apply safety features to products licensed in GB only, so PLGBs, but we do encourage retention of the anti-tamper device. The current derogation from the obligation to decommission unique identifiers when medicines are distributed to the UK will continue to apply until the 31st of December 2024. And this again is to facilitate that onward supply from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, where unique identifiers will continue to need to be verified and decommissioned as required by the regulation. Further discussions on the future position after the 31st of December 2024 are ongoing. And as Jack's already mentioned, there is a consultation with industry on the future of a UK system, and that's jointly led by the DHSC and the MHRA. And I'm sure further information on that consultation will follow in due course. Thank you for your attention. I'm just going to hand over to Hannah.
Thanks, Lewis. Hi, my name is Hannah and I'm in the MHRA policy team. As you may be aware, we recently introduced a new regulatory route known as the Northern Ireland MHRA authorised route. Next slide, please. NIMA is reflected in UK domestic legislation and is compliant with Article 5.1 of the EU Acquis. It is a national initiative and not part of the EU proposal, which my colleagues have been discussing. It is a public health measure for prescription-only medicines designed to ensure equity of access to medicine across the UK. NIMA will ensure that if a prescription-only medicine has been assessed as safe for patient use by the MHRA, patients in NI can continue to benefit from access to this medicine. I'm now going to briefly talk through NIMA eligibility, list composition, and supplying NIMA products. A lot of what I'm going to talk through is also reflected on the slide for clarity. Inclusion on the NIMA list cannot be directly applied for, and just because a product has a GB-only marketing authorisation does not mean that it will be included on the NIMA list. Eligibility for NIMA will be determined by a joint DHSC, NIE and MHRA assessment of clinical need in Northern Ireland, and if it is deemed that Northern Ireland patient need cannot be met with supply of licensed products, the product will be placed on a publicly available NIMA list, which is available on gov.uk. Just to reiterate, to be eligible for supply via NIMA, one of the conditions is that the medicinal product is subject to a UK marketing authorisation, either for GB or the entire UK. At present, I understand all NIMA products are GB-only MAs, but a product with a UK MA could be eligible if for some reason it was unable to be supplied in full accordance with its marketing authorisation. The list of eligible products will be reviewed on an as-needed basis, and it is expected that products will be retained on the list for a reasonable period to provide stability in the Northern Ireland market. We envision that new products can be added to or removed from the NIMA list at any time as required. Next slide, please. List composition. The NIMAR list is currently publicly available on gov.uk and at present has around 17 products on it. As I've just set out, these products have been determined on the basis of meeting patient need in Northern Ireland, and it is not possible to apply directly for NIMAR. Instead, please notify DHSC of any discontinuations in Northern Ireland, there is currently a legal obligation to do so. The list sets out the generic product, its strength, the date added, and where appropriate, brand name of what can be supplied under NIMAR. A brand has only been added where this is clinically necessary. Only prescription-only medicines may be supplied under NIMAR, and only the specified strength and, where necessary, brand may be supplied. Next slide, please. Supply. The intent of NIMAR is to replicate the existing supply chain as closely as possible. Products which are on the NIMAR list should be supplied in the same manner as authorised products. NIMAR products may be supplied directly to NI from the manufacturer via GB wholesaler dealers or via Northern Ireland wholesaler dealers. An existing WDA is sufficient to supply NIMAR products and no further application is necessary. For more information, the new regulation 43ZA sets out these obligations that are placed on holders of wholesaler dealers licenses in GB who are supplying NIMAR products to Northern Ireland. Next slide, please. Wholesalers in Great Britain should refer to the NIMAR list to determine if a product can be supplied to Northern Ireland. If it is on the list, then it can be supplied. These medicines will likely not be serialised for FMD, and where this is the case, there is no obligation on dispensers to decommission. We are intending to engage with dispensers to make this requirement clear. Any medicinal product which is reasonably supplied to Northern Ireland while it is on the list can continue to be dispensed in Northern Ireland, even if the product is later removed from the list. However, once a medicine has been removed from the list, new stock may no longer be supplied through NIMAR from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. Thank you very much.
And if you do have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact our customer services centre at info@mhra.gov.uk. Apart from that, thank you very much.